on the Lightning Network. We've got some great people with us. So we've got John Cavallo, CCO of BitRefill. And then we've got Keto Miner, obviously from the Nodl project. Things are going well with Nodl. And we've got Max Hillebrand, Austrian economist, and Voss, advocate, privacy researcher. And then Wasaba Napara, from Wasabi Wallet, privacy researcher and advocate as well. So it should be a good discussion. A small disclaimer, everything I do, all the little projects I make are on Lightning Network. And I look at the amazing computer science which is being done by people like Matt Corello or Christian Decker or Lalu. And I'm a fan of Lightning Network. But obviously there are cynics out there. So I try to address those cynics in the questions, so they're kind of represented. So we'll give it a whirl. So I'll ask the first question to all of you. So it's been 20 months, about 20 months, isn't it, since Lightning Network went live on mainnet. So how do you think it's gone so far in these first 20 months?
Oh, okay.
You got a choice.
I think it's been going pretty well. I mean, I know that there's a meme about, Lightning always being 18 months away and such. But I think that we've seen a lot of growth in the last year. Things have gotten a little bit slower maybe in the past few months, maybe more to do correlation with the price and stuff. But I know that what we're working on, at BitRefill, we're definitely talking with players behind the scenes and helping to make sure that infrastructure is, growing across the industry. So I think that I'm pretty happy with it. It would always be nicer for things to go faster. We haven't reached some kind of mass adoption. It's still a portion of even Bitcoin's transactions, but it's certainly growing nicely, and it's certainly looking better than any of the shitcoins.
For us, it's very simple. At Nodl, actually, without Lightning, we would not have this project. So basically, that's what made me decide to build a full node into a commercial product, because it gives a real purpose.
I mean, so you guys, you've recently, we saw some nice pictures on Twitter of the new Nodl developments, and you've had a pre-sale of Nodls, or?
Sorry?
You sold you've got a new Nodl.
Yeah, so now we have the new version which embeds the Samurai Dojo server, and we have a new version of our black box coming as well. And a lot of announcements actually next week in Berlin with third-party projects.
Yep, and I've been following Lightning for a while, and in the very, very early days, when there were only a couple nodes on mainnet, trying to make a route failed 20, 30, 50 times before it went through, even if it was only a couple hops, just because it's complicated, a lot of communication going on in the background. And now using it ever since then, just to see where we are now is mind-blowing. I would have never thought that block time moves that fast, but it's a lot of fun. We have a bunch of hackers like you building awesome stuff, a bunch of great companies providing awesome services, and more the infrastructure being built out in plug-and-play boxes. So all this is very promising. I did not estimate it being that crazy, that fast, but I mean, Bitcoin already is crazy fast. And that's layer 1, so layer 2 is kind of exponential in all regards, basically. It's definitely a lot of fun. He doesn't want the microphone.
Oh, okay, that's fair enough. We'll move on to the next question. John, this one's more directed at you, actually. BitRefill is obviously doing some pretty interesting work with Lightning Network and Thor. So how does Thor work? Can you explain?
Basically what we're doing at BitRefill is we're not a normal, even though we're involved in Lightning Network, we're not necessarily a group of programmers, a lab creating protocol technology. So as a business, we're trying to basically find a way to interface the technology with products so we can provide services for people to be able to use Lightning Network more reliably or integrate it with their business or even just play with it as a consumer. So the idea with the Thor products is, one, we provide, a la carte services if people want to buy channels or refill channels with Lightning Bitcoin. But we're also putting those services into API package so people can then use that, on demand to integrate it into platforms and things like this. And we'll also have some announcements this month about partnerships with the Thor products, as well as some new additional features that you'll be able to buy a la carte.
Really nice. I mean, obviously, you like your product. Sorry. Obviously, you like. Are there any other sort of products and projects which are being made on Lightning which specifically kind of jump out of you as being really interesting? And what are your favorite kind of Lightning projects which have happened over the past 20 months?
I mean, I have kind of a bias, but you know, we're also helping out with this layer 3 kind of compatibility project with based with the RGB team to be able to do more layer 3 technology, you know, doing special messaging and being able to eventually have tokens be able to be passed through a kind of layer 3 DEX technology. So that's really interesting to me because I would like to see, like, I don't think tokens are completely useless. I think that we've seen that there are some applications, and I would like for people to be able to do that confidently on Bitcoin instead of having to stray to some altcoin where it's just like, oh, it's just easier to use Ethereum, and I'd like to see that for Lightning. So that's pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like it's a bit kind of like the .com stuff. You have, it's almost like you have the future echoing ideas into the present. So you have something like, you know, these tokens, and there'll be technologies and things people will be experimenting with, which, you know, for now would go crappy and a bit of a waste of time, but in the future they'll develop into something useful, just, you know, like the .com, they develop into something useful.
Sure, and this is the general area of interest for me with Lightning overall. It's where I like the idea that now we have like an actual P2P network, and if we just think of it, comparing it to other things we do with P2P networks, and now we have monetization built in, you can come up with some pretty creative, you know, technology solutions, products, etc.
Yeah, yeah. How about you guys? What's your some of your favorite products? I mean, obviously.
Polo Feed. Polo Feed.
What's
Another website where you can feed chicken
Oh,
paying
yeah.
Lightning. That's I think that's a real use case for Lightning.
Oh yeah, the new Lightning ATM, absolutely. One of the very early projects was from the dudes at Puzzles LTC. It's an open source factory. They build awesome stuff, not just in Bitcoin. And they had in a cafe, that was like March 2018, was a long time ago. Outside in the cafe, a screen, just a TV, and there were QR codes displayed with like coffee, sandwich, muffin, and all that. And you walk up as a user outside on the street, you scan the QR code, you pay that invoice, and then payment gets confirmed instantly, basically. And you see just two words popping up on the screen, and after 10 seconds, these two words disappear. You walk inside, you say these two words, you get your coffee, you walk out. And that just blew my mind so hard, because the merchant had no clue who that person was. He just received money. That didn't even know which Lightning node or which UTXO funded that transaction. He doesn't care. He got sats. He will never lose them again. And two words, you don't even dox your name or email or anything, and you get your coffee. And all that was, you know, back like a long time ago already. It's possible, and we are going to make this so much better with every further upgrade. In general, what these Puzzle LTC guys are doing is great, like the beer tap, another cocktail machine. They work on awesome stuff.
Yeah, no, that was Oliver Gruger's project, wasn't it, in Bern? And that came out of just their meetup, didn't it? It was that they wanted to stop developing and building something on Lightning. He's working for Lightning Labs now, hopefully on custom macaroons, because we need custom macaroons.
Spoke about that earlier on the WCN. So if you want to learn more about custom macaroons, there's a show.
So I have a different perspective on this. What I'm the most excited about is the lower layer improvements. Because in WhatsApp, so there is this notion that blockchains don't scale. So we need something else to transact with, and that looks like it's going to be Lightning Network. So any Bitcoin wallet that wants to stay in business has to integrate Lightning Network sooner or later. But the Lightning Network, even on the protocol level, it's not really solidified yet. There are these things like Zcash no input, L2, people talk about. And integrating Lightning Network right now would mean I would have to reintegrate it again. So I just don't want to work twice. I want to get in a point when it becomes really stable or at least solidified the specification.
Yeah, especially considering just Schnorr and Taproot, Zcash no input. So fundamental changes to the base protocol that will completely change how we interact with Lightning. So especially from the wallet developer side, that's going to be double work.
Yeah, fantastic. So, I mean, it's not all plain sailing. It's obviously, developing protocols is pretty hard. We recently had the bug, which allowed someone to open a channel and then lie about the funds, which they'd opened with. Not that it would cause any inflation, just that it would mean that they could then receive, more than they put into the channel. That was obviously, closed up as a bug, and now people hopefully have all updated their nodes. But there are hurdles in protocol development. So do you think, is there anything which you can think of which is really going to kind of get in the way of Lightning Network developing further? Do you think they've got any hurdles or any problems they might face as it gets, more people using it, and they can be less reckless with the way in which they upgrade?
I start with this one. I'm coming from networking and dynamic routing on the internet. And actually, I think the major challenge we'll face in Lightning is routing, especially when we start to have multipath payments. It's already hard to do routing when you have equal costs path, and Lightning adds the difficulty that you have to check the balance of every segment of the path and the fees of each segment of the path. So yeah, I think we should onboard like some old guys from the routing
So in
industry
a multipath, so when you split a payment into separate tiny payments, is this
Yeah.
and then that would make sense. So then it's obviously each one of those payments has then got to get to the destination.
Yeah, and the problem is like you will very quickly get a very huge amount of possible paths with different fees on every segment and different capacities, and yeah, unless you go through major hubs, you will get in a routing nightmare very fast.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that problem.
I don't know if it's good or bad yet, but I think one challenge for devs could be the multiple implementation atmosphere. I'm only hearing about more people making more implementations for Lightning, and that seems like it could be tricky if anybody tries to innovate, because you end up needing to have uptake of your version of Lightning to have compatibility for your special features. That's cool because you don't need to hard fork the network to be able to do something, but it's also could be potentially a challenge, because a lot of these companies, they need to monetize somehow, and they need to fund these developers to make these things. And if we have a really wide environment with a lot of implementations, there's a bad side to that as well. So that could be challenging to navigate.
Yeah, good. I mean, again, something I hadn't thought out was it's kind of thinking outside the box. The idea of having lots of different implementations, on the surface level, it seems like a really good idea to me. But like you say, it's going to cause a lot of problems with compatibility.
Yeah,
hopefully not.
And I think we saw that especially with the bug, right? Bitcoin doesn't have specification. We have bolts, standards, but no specification. I mean, Bitcoin D is the reference implementation, but that's like the complete software stack. Lightning Network has a specification with the bolts. And the bug was not a mistake of wallet or implementation developers. It was a mistake of the spec writers. They just did not put this verification of the funding transaction into the spec. It was not there. And of course, if you explain Lightning to anyone conceptually, you say that, yeah, you verify the funding transaction, obviously. Makes sense. Why would you not verify it, right? But it was not in the spec, because maybe they assumed, yeah, of course we're going to verify it, so we don't have to write it in the spec. But then if all the implementations, especially when we have several implementations.
And they're working so hard trying to get this thing rolled out and to work, and
exactly,
it's a very easy huge work.
But if we have several different implementations that then all rely on the spec and implement it beat for beat, and there's a mistake in the spec, that is very bad, right? Especially because then all the different implementations will be affected. So should you always verify the specs, or should you sometimes deviate from the spec? Should you always stick to it? That's questions that we never had for Bitcoin, because there was just Bitcoin D, and something like libitcoin needs to implement all the bugs of Bitcoin because otherwise it's no longer consensus. So it's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's also, Bitcoin, it took time for what can I say, the quality of the developers to get better. But obviously, as Bitcoin grew as a network, it attracted a lot more developers. Whereas with Lightning, the people working on the protocol, they're already world class. Someone like Rusty Russell, who spotted the bug, he's in Linux, he's a big name. He's a very important dude, a world class developer. I mean, all of them are geniuses. So hopefully any other bug would get spotted pretty quickly. Okay, so let me have a little look here. So obviously, Lightning, the network, has been implemented. Was first implemented on Litecoin, and then Bitcoin. and you could potentially put it on top of anything, even something like BSV or Libra. With all these stable coins, which may come out in the near future, such as Libra, and other people, it's hard to argue against Lightning Network, its functionality, and because it works, the product works. So would you think that they're going to adopt Lightning Network and start using it more? Do you think Libra would adopt Lightning Network and start using it more? And what impact would you think that could have on Bitcoin, per se?
I guess I'll take the skeptical side and say that, yeah, it's interesting that we can put Lightning Network and start having atomic swapping across Lightning on multiple chains and this kind of thing. But I have a feeling, and I think that looking at Litecoin as an example, I have a feeling that that's not really going to save the altcoins. I think it's just going to make it more apparent that what their very limited use case is. Just simply being a higher risk environment with lower security and more centralized. And that's really the spectrum you're shopping on when you're shopping for altcoins or shopping for transmitting value over an altcoin. So I have a feeling that even though it can be done, it's not really going to end up being super useful, except for maybe if we see something like Ethereum just never goes away and we need interoperability, then I guess there would be some use there. But I just have a feeling as Bitcoin fleshes out all of these scaling technologies, it's just actually going to detract from the competitors more, and it's just going to feel silly having Lightning Network putting the time into implementing it on a chain. Right now, Litecoin, yeah, sure, they had it first, but it's getting very, very little usage. You don't have people having conferences and panels talking about using Lightning on Litecoin. So does it matter? Probably not.
Yeah, I think shitcoins will definitely adopt Lightning. Some of them already did, but for me, every developer working on a shitcoin is someone who could be working on Bitcoin and is not, and it's same for Lightning.
Yep, free Libre open source software, fork it, code it, merge it, done. Ultimately, it's the same argument as with Bitcoin on-chain. It's a monetary, economical argument. To have competing monies is a non-zero-sum game. It is a zero-sum game. There are winners and there are losers. And if you hold a weaker currency, you lose every single second that you hold that shitcoin. And therefore, we tend towards only one currency because then less people lose money. Or purchasing power, rather. So in that sense, same concept. I'm much more interested on the third layer stuff that we can build on top, like Storm or RGB. This is where we can have different nuances and implementations to use this network more adequately, more worthy. And as you mentioned earlier with routing, I mean, we already, routing is so difficult already. Now add to this foreign currency exchange. That's going to make it infinitely more expensive to calculate what are the good routes. Not just, okay, what are the capacity, what is the balance, what is the fee, what is the network graph and all that, but also what are the exchange units. With RGB, we have shitcoins. With something like then, with then something like, what's it called, Spectre, we have exchanges of the shitcoins over RGB. So this will come, yes. Will we layer back into each base first layer? I don't know. I don't think we need it. I guess we can do all the magic that we need on top of Bitcoin.
I agree with the others that the more and more things are being built on Bitcoin, the harder and harder it will be for altcoins to look legitimate, because users are going to just expect the same functionality. Now, is it a good thing? It's much harder to build stuff on Bitcoin, and we started out with pay-to-pub-key, and then we added pay-to-pub-key hash, and then we added SegWit on top of it with a very interesting logic, so to say. So it gets harder and harder to work on Bitcoin too. But this is how the internet evolved. The internet wasn't the best thing that has been around at the time. With the smoothest architecture, no, it was the most open with the most people working on it, and they went to all different directions, and it ended up being a mess today, but a good kind of mess.
There's beauty in all this chaos we do.
No, I mean, so the free and open source projects working on something similar, whether they have a sort of a cooperative relationship with each other, or whether they have kind of more friction between the different projects. Like obviously in Bitcoin and with the shitcoins, we have a lot of friction between projects. But then like something like the implementations, they can meet and they'll help develop specs. So Ketominer with the Nodl, so we have a collection of excellent Lightning nodes which people can choose to run, and some of them that you buy off the shelf, like the Casa, and just use. Others you have to kind of build yourself, like the Raspberry Blitz. The Nodl is a fascinating project for me. It kind of sits in the middle, like you can buy it off the box, off the shelf, or it's all free and open source, so you can, and you have instructions on your GitLab on how to put it all together. So do you find that you have like cooperation between node development, or is it quite competitive?
I wouldn't call it cooperation, even if we talk with some of the other people. Some of them do things in their corner and don't even talk with people who make the apps they embed on the nodes. We spend a lot of time talking with the apps we want to embed, and the partnering apps like Zap is not directly on the node. We just have a compatibility QR code to pair your Zap wallet with the node. We met with Jack yesterday in Paris, actually.
I see. So
we talked a lot with BTC Pay before embedding them on the box. We are talking with the guys from RTR. We are talking with the guys from Fully Noded. We really like to talk with the ecosystem and help them make the product easier to integrate and help us to integrate the product.
One thing specifically, the Nodl Telegram chat, that was so awesome in the very early days. There were just all the builders in there. It was fantastic, really, like BTC Pay, a couple dudes, Zap was in there, and like you, the hardware guys. It's very good to get everyone together to building these projects, because ultimately we rely on each other's software and to communicate and to make it interoperable. It's definitely good.
Yeah, I think that's it. We even have people like Slush on our channel. We know that the moment we need them, we can just add them on the channel and we'll get the answer we need. We try to not abuse that. But
yeah, it's nice that the software which you're providing the service for, that kind of helps bridge other projects together. I mean, the wonderful thing about the model is obviously you have like a full stack of products.
Yeah, and except the integration and the web interface that manages all of that, our goal is not to develop services ourselves. So we really need to rely on third-party projects.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Good, it's great. So I think that's pretty much is kind of wrapping it up. Are we okay to wrap up? Do we need to carry on? Oh yeah, questions. That's a good idea. We'll ask some questions. Has anyone got? Well, we've got these people here. Has anyone got a question they want to direct? Anyone? We could pass over a mic. Anyone any questions? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, maybe someone is preparing some news for the Lightning conference. I don't know if you are going there or if there is some technical announcements from the perspective of the different implementations or personal projects.
Thank you. Good question. So yeah, the Lightning Network conference is obviously coming up in a week or a couple of weeks. So anything you're excited about for that?
So I don't know of any new implementation coming, but there are definitely some features that are being merged in LND and are very exciting. And a lot of projects are being built on top of these features.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. That's going to be one mind-blowing conference. It's like the Hack Days, but bigger. Bigger is better. So that's going to be fun. I think one specific project that is also going to make an announcement, I think Max was speaking here before, is Hodl Hodl, which is like an exchange where you trade, not just where you fund a custodial exchange with Lightning, but where you actually trade over Lightning. So I think that is very awesome. And for the week of the conference specifically, or convention, they are doing the Lightning Network Week, where they cut fees in half or something. So that is just one really good project where you can actually stack sats over Lightning, like really over Lightning. And the cool thing with Lightning is that it's hundreds of little hackers like building awesome stuff. I mean, your arcade IoT games, like you bring all of them to the event.
I'll hook that up tomorrow because I didn't get around to hooking up today, but I'll hook up tomorrow, put it in the foyer, and then people can exchange their euros for sats. So should be good.
Basically, we're at the point where I know we have some announcements this month, but we're like on the edge of whether we're going to decide whether to announce them because it's next weekend in Berlin. But we're certainly going to try. But just in general, you know, we're really focused on building out the kind of infrastructure aspect and working with partners. So the stuff that we'll announce with Lightning is going to be about building relationships between businesses to build out that side of the Lightning Network. You know, right now there are a lot of, for example, like I don't know of any major exchange that's really added Lightning. Some are playing with nodes, and so I think that's another stage we have to go through, and hopefully there'll be announcements about that. But it's something very important to us. We're sending 7 people from the company to the conference, so we're going to be fully representing and trying to make connections, and so we're pretty excited about it, just like everybody here.
Yeah, great, exciting times. So I've got another question, actually. Is there anything which you're looking forward to on a protocol level to Lightning Network, which is coming out in the near future or in the future in particular?
The 2 features I mentioned before that I can't name.
For me, this goes well mainly on-chain features, which is Schnorr and L2. Schnorr and SIG hash no input or other SIG hash types. Because with L2, we're going to have a lot of privacy improvements and a lot of just usability improvements, just a simpler protocol. And Schnorr in general is just the most powerful privacy feature we have on so many regards. So I just imagine like coin swaps into coin join channel factories for then rendezvous routing with endpoints and all the magic. Short chain analysis, long Bitcoin.
So Alex Borsch is working on a project called Hyperloop. He presented it in Riga in the Baltic Honey Badger conference. No one understood the word, not even me. But what it wants to do is it helps people off-board Lightning, so send money from Lightning Network to on-chain in an actually privacy-centric way. And that's really interesting because we can onboard Lightning with CoinJoin and in theory, and we can spend Lightning on-chain, then we kind of have a full loop and complete private interaction between on-chain and Lightning. That would be an interesting vision, which may be a reality. I cheer for Alex.
Best Twitter follow, by the way.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. When you have the innovation, when you have this new collection of tools, then you can smash them together and start having all this, interesting innovation happen. So, yeah, exciting times ahead. Any other questions?
So for all the very good things that Lightning offers, you have the drawbacks that are mostly UX-wise. You mostly have to back up stuff in a different way from just your seed. And you have the fact that you have to stay online or have somebody online. And as Max mentioned in his presentation, you gain a lot of privacy from chain analysis, but you lose a lot of privacy, at least if you use it trivially, from the IP address. I mean, if you don't use Tor properly, even if you use Tor, if you publish your channel with your routing liquidity pattern, you give up a lot of information about you. So my question would be, if you already identified the kind of, apart from Lightning Network development itself, if you are already identifying some kind of solution for backup and privacy, let's say opt-out privacy, strong incentives for users.
I guess for the backups, L2 will make everything easier again. Same with watchtowers. Also Schnorr signatures, because we no longer use hash time lock contracts, but adapter signatures. And adapter signatures are elliptic curve points. And thus you no longer have to store hashes and pre-images, but you can, I think, do all of this in a hierarchical deterministic wallet structure. Because for the secrets, you only use points on the curve and no longer hash pre-images. So I think that Schnorr adapter signatures will make backups a lot easier, but I actually have not looked much into if it's actually even possible.
For backups, we have actually a hardware solution to a software problem. We just do redundant storage on the new box, and we also provide a way to redundantly store your .lnd folder on a USB stick attached to the device. And we talked with Alex in Riga, and he said like that's a good way to go, unless you have a really big data corruption when writing. You should be able to restart your LND directly from the mirrored storage. And about the privacy issues, I think, like as an end user, for example, on your mobile wallet, the private channels are the way to go. Tor and private channels.
And in the context of BitRefill, you know, it's kind of tricky because we're a centralized entity, so we're not really going to be in a position to help you with your backups in some way that you couldn't do yourself. So if there ends up being some kind of creative way that we can leverage being central and only having like what we call momentary trust, basically when you make the purchase, we'll facilitate. But at the moment, I don't know of any opportunities in that area for us.
Yes, so about backups, we know how to back up digital data, and we figured out that, hey, if you write down this X word, then it's really cool cryptography. But when I implemented Wasabi the first time, I was thinking, does it really make sense? Shouldn't we just encrypt it and put it somewhere, because that's how things are done? You know, and some wallets are doing that. I mean, I thought, I don't want to innovate in security. That might not be a good idea. So I did not do that. But, you know, backing up digital data, we can figure that out, I think.
Yeah, nice. Any other questions? No? So well, I suppose we'll conclude the panel. Thank you very much for agreeing to talk, and cheers.